Hey y'all, coming to you from Jacksonville, Florida. This is GovLove, a podcast about local government brought to you by engaging local government leaders. I'm Ben Kittelson, manager at FTELUS and GovLove co-host. We've got a great episode for you today. We're going to be talking leadership and organizational culture in Flower Mound, Texas. But first, the best way to support GovLove is to become an ELGO member. Engaging local government leaders is a national volunteer-run, member-based nonprofit organization with a mission to engage the brightest minds in local government. You can check us out and learn more about our $50 annual membership at elgl.org. Now, let me introduce today's guest. James Childers is the town manager for the town of Flower Mound, Texas, a position he's been in since January 2022. He also served in Flower Mound as a budget intern at the beginning of his career. But before joining Flower Mound in this current role, he served as assistant city manager in Irving, Texas, and as both assistant city manager and previously community services director in Abilene, Texas. He also held multiple positions for the city of Dallas before that. And with that, James, welcome to GovLove. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate it.
So we've got a tradition on the podcast to start with a lightning round, get to know our guests a little better, and allow you to warm up a little bit. So what's the first album that you bought?
Man, I laughed so loud when I read this. I had to really think long and hard. So I'm going to give you two answers. So one is, I think the first album I went to the store by myself and bought was Dr. Dre's The Chronic. Going into seventh grade, I remember walking to Sound Warehouse in Carrollton, Texas, and buying. That's the first album I bought on my own. But the more I thought about it is that the first album that I picked out and bought for myself, ironically, was a John Denver and the Muppets album.
Nice.
Back when I was a little kid. I didn't know anything about John Denver. I knew everything about the Muppets. So I remember that was the only LP I ever owned. That was mine. But Dr. Dre's The Chronic's actually the first album I went by myself and bought.
Yeah. I like that distinction. You had a little help with the John Denver one, but shows your range. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. My next lightning question for you. What book are you currently reading?
So I'm wrapping up High Road Leadership by John Maxwell. He's one of my favorite leadership authors, and wrapping that up. I've been just very busy just with life right now. I got a kid that's graduating high school. I just don't have a lot of free time, so I haven't been able to read as much as possible. But I was also gifted a book called Theo of Golden by, I think it's Alex Levi. That was gifted to me by one of our council members, and that's on my reading list for this summer. So those are books that I'm wrapping up and the book I'm about to start.
Nice. Yeah. Theo of Golden is also on my stack. So it's one of my targets next.
Yeah. And what's interesting, I'm not a big fiction reader. I mostly read like leadership books and historical books and things of that nature. And so I've been told by everybody who's read it that it's really good. So looking forward to reading that one.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Next lightning round question for you. What's the last great movie or TV show, something that you've watched that you'd recommend?
Wow. So with this one, the last movie I saw was The Mandalorian and Grogu, and it was fun. I wouldn't call it great, but I enjoyed it. But believe it or not, I've been kind of going back in the show Black Mirror on Netflix. I've watched kind of sporadic episodes and jumped around to what caught my interest. And now I'm kind of going back and filling the gaps. And I watched this one episode, I think it's from season 4, called Crocodile. And man, I'm usually not very emotional when I watch a show, but I hated the lady in the show so bad. I was yelling at my TV screen the entire time. So I guess that's a good indication of great, because it's got me emotionally riled up and yelling at my screen. I hate a character so much. So I would say that the Black Mirror episode Crocodile was the last great TV show or movie that I've watched here recently.
Yeah. No. Anytime you're reacting out loud to the show, that's a good sign. It's got you.
Yeah.
All right. Then my last lightning round question for you. Where do you go for inspiration?
So it's going to sound super generic and boring, but I like going to conferences. It's a good little break to get you out of the monotony of being in an office and dealing with those issues in front of you. We just wrapped up our Texas City Managers Association conference. It was local, which kind of stinks because, I go home every night and I feel like I'm still kind of working. I'm not really kind of out of the office. But anytime I go to a conference, I come back energized with a lot of ideas. It's great to interact with other professionals and other great leaders and bounce off of them. So typically when I get back from TCMA or ICA, I'm super inspired. But outside of conferences, really, it's just getting that alone time. And for me, I spend a lot of time working out, and
Hmm.
I put on the headphones, listen to music, listen to the radio. But also part of that, I just kind of thinking in the background and just trying to recharge and do things like that. So I'll say conferences and just working out and exercising are my two areas where I get inspiration, and something hits me and then I come in the office and want to act on it. So when I get done with you, something hit me and I got to
Yeah.
get with our chief strategic officer and offload it before I lose it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. The two ends of the spectrum, like
Yeah.
connecting with people to get at new ideas, and then just like turning the brain off and and letting them come to you. Yeah.
Yes.
And you're totally right. When the conference is local, it's just not the same experience. It's you
No.
can't disconnect in the same way from the day job. Yeah.
No.
Well, I'm curious. I always like asking guests this, but like, what I gave a little bit of your bio kind of at the beginning, but what was your path to local government? How'd you end up in the position you're in today? Like, what was that journey like?
So I'll, I'll uh, I'll elaborate on my entry point to the profession in my next the next question. But what I will tell you is that once I got in, for me, how I got to this position here was a lot of twists and turns and unique directions that I've gone during the course of my career. I've joked that I've pretty much done everything that I said I wasn't going to do in my career, and I'm better for it, because going into the profession, I just felt that I'd go to one organization, I'd be the assistant to the city manager, and then I'll be like the director of administrative services, and then the assistant city manager, and then the city manager, right?
Yeah.
It didn't. I didn't work out like that at all.
Yep.
I
Yep.
kind
Yep.
of bounced around. I never was going to work in HR. My first job was an HR generalist, my first full-time job. I was never going to work for the city of Dallas. I went to the city of Dallas and worked there for 7 years. I was never going to leave the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex. I ended up being in Abilene for 5 years. So it was just a lot of twists and turns that I was better for, and that's something that when I mentor younger professions, I just tell them that, hey, this is a journey, and sometimes you have to just sit back and roll with it because it'll take you to some interesting spots. But more importantly, everything that I didn't want to do or didn't think I was going to do made me a better manager and put me in a position to be where I am today. And so, going back to just the opportunity in HR, I mean, the basis of what I learned at the beginning of my career, I still use to this day. I know
Mm.
how to handle employee relations, I know how to handle discipline, things of that nature. Going to Dallas was just instrumental in me just meeting some great folks and learning some great skill sets. And then, going for Abilene for me was my opportunity to get up to that assistant city manager level,
Hmm.
get outside of the Metroplex for a while. But it just all set me up to be successful overall. So I think for me, I took a winding path that I didn't anticipate, but in retrospect and with looking back with some wisdom, I wouldn't change a single thing about how I
Yeah.
developed because it was unique and it shaped me into the leader I am today.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's well said. I think I can totally relate to that. I remember being at the beginning of my career, I got like an internship in my hometown in Oregon, and I was like, this is just where I'll be. I'll just be able to work my way up, and maybe someday I'll be the city manager. And of course, it didn't work out like that. And you got to kind of be open to the opportunities. How do you kind of think about, or maybe looking back on it, like how do you think about like, hey, this is the kind of thing I want to be open to, or this is truly a line where I'm not gonna not compromise, or I'm maybe going to stick with my kind of first impression or first kind of instinct.
Well, I think for me is man, early in my career, I was so you kind of miss the big picture in a way.
Mm.
Is that I was so fixated on you know where I was and what my age was and what I hadn't accomplished yet, what I didn't know. It was always about kind of this what about a lot of comparison, to my family, which I think we'll get to here in a second, but
Mm.
also my peers and all those different types of things. And ironically, the moment I just said none of this crap matters. What am I doing to get better? What is my journey? What do I need to take away? Is ironically when my career started taking off is when I stopped worrying about all this other stuff and
Hmm.
stopped worrying about where I was, where you're planted, what are you getting out of it? Your set of circumstances, what is unique that you can take away to get where you ultimately want to go and go, where
Yeah.
you ultimately want to get. And And so for me, it was like once I started to realize to just shut the noise down, quit worrying about timelines and positions and this, that, and the other, and just say, okay, wow, I'm here in Abilene. What do I need to take away from this? The cool thing about Abilene, I was over a zoo. It's
Yeah.
not too many people can, a literal zoo. I mean, it may feel like we work at zoos, but
Yeah.
it was a literal zoo. And I was over a health district and all these different things. You're just like, all right, this is cool. These are unique. These are things that I can kind of pull in the fold. How does it make me a better manager someday? How does it put me in a position to be successful?
Hmm.
And then when you stop worrying about all the other crap, you just get to a point where you're like, wow, my skill set is building to that point where I feel like I can be undeniable, or I feel like whatever organization I plug into, I'm going to bring a tremendous amount of value to it. So for me, it was just a matter of, and I share this a lot, is that we all deal with that little bit of level of imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
that level of I'm not ready, or I don't know enough. And I was one of those people who early in my career I was kind of petrified by everything I didn't know, everything I wasn't exposed to, everywhere I didn't work,
Hmm.
and just start saying, "What do you bring to the table?" And then once I figured that out, man, it just I don't want to say it got easier, but I knew my value and I knew what I brought to the table.
Oh, how did you think about that? Like, how did you? I mean, was it just kind of taking classes or reflecting on your own kind of skill set and leadership,
Just
or like how
just
did you kind
just
of identify that?
just maturity. I
Yeah.
think it just ultimately you start to understand, and I was very fortunate because it's like it points to your career, because I don't have a jealous or hating bone in my body. I love it when my peers reach success, but at a certain point, you'll start seeing your peers like, wow, they're an assistant city manager now. Wow, they're this, and I'm just that,
Hmm.
and whatever. And you weren't jealous, you were happy for them, but you're like, wow, when am I going to get my opportunity?
Yeah.
And you just got to come to that realization. And what it took was just some reflection to say, okay, it's cool. It's not a race. There's not a competition
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
see who becomes this first or whatever the case may be. Circumstances for everybody is different. There's some people just show up and three people resign, and all of a sudden you're the city
Yeah.
manager. And there's other places where you got to work 20 years to get to that level. And it's to each their own, and everybody's situation is unique. And I just had to mature into that and understand that my path is my own. And once you embrace it, that's why I say it's so counterintuitive. The moment you let go, you kind of get what you want and just
Mm.
realize that, hey, I'm here for a reason. I need to take what I need to take away from this experience and just become a better professional and a better leader from it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, that's really good perspective. I love that. And I, and I think I'd be curious. So the balance between, hey, this is my ultimate goal and what I want to kind of, build myself towards being a town manager, and like, what can I, how could I, what do I be open to the experience and the opportunities within my role now to build towards that? How do you kind of balance the like, hey, this is my long-term goal, and then what do I need to do to kind of build myself up? Like, how do you just kind of think about like, what are the opportunities within my current role? When you're thinking about the next step, is it, what are the things I don't have or want to kind of build my skill set in, or like, or did you even think about it like that as more just kind of relaxing and being more open to kind of what
No,
your career
there was
unfolds?
always a vision there, and
Yeah.
even though in my previous answer I talked about that maturity piece, which
Yeah.
was sure. Even when I lacked the maturity, I always knew where I wanted to go. I was
Hmm.
not shy about the fact saying, hey, I want to be a city manager one day. I want to be a city manager. And early on, even as an intern or whatever, you always wanted to fit the role. You dress the role,
Hmm.
you know, everybody's culture is a little bit different, but when I was in Dallas, I wore a tie every day. I wore a sport coat, a suit, because I wanted to project that hey, I want to be the city manager one day. I want to be
Yeah.
a city manager. So I always had my eye on the ball, so to speak. I just kind of had to go through the journey and the twists and the turns and the unexpected. But I always was never shy about what I wanted to accomplish and where I wanted to get in my career. And I always conducted myself as if I was in that role. And I was very good at mental reps. I paid attention to what happened around me. I'm not a super talkative person. I can be a little quiet,
Hmm.
and I'm an observer. And so I'm always watching. So it's like that, using that concept of mental reps. It's like, even if I'm on the bench,
Yeah.
I'm watching what's happening in the game. I'm watching what the starting quarterback is doing. I'm watching what the defense is doing. So when you're in that role, you feel ready. And
Hmm.
so I was always constantly learning. And as much as my desire and sometimes my ego got into play that said, hey, I can do this. I'm ready. I'm ready. In retrospect, you realize, you really weren't ready, but you were kind of building you were building your skill set to get to the point where you are ready, where
Yeah.
once you do get into that role, you can run with it and be highly successful. You don't want to rush to failure. And so I think for me, it was just always knowing what I wanted to do. My head was always in the game. I was always watching. I was watching for the good and the bad, and
Hmm.
of my city manager, my directors, whoever I was reporting to, and then also just taking it all in and building out my leadership. I guess best way I can term it, my leadership portfolio, what I
Yeah.
what I bring to the table and what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. No, that's really good perspective. So you kind of previewed this a little bit in your answer, but your bio on the town website, and I think you might have even said this at the ICMA conference session that I attended that you spoke at. But you're a second generation city manager. So like maybe can you talk about what it was like to grow up in a local government household and kind of have this profession, like, or be aware of it from when you were a kid, which not everyone can say.
Yeah, so what's very interesting, the Texas City Managers Association, we held our 100th anniversary conference this year. It was really, really good. And so my father, Ricky Childers, was a longtime city manager in the state of Texas, city manager, deputy assistant city manager. He is one of now, I think it's 14 people that have received a distinguished designation from the Texas City Managers Association. He also did something similar with ICMA. My dad is one of those people who never met a stranger. He's got a bigger than life personality. He's universally loved and all that stuff. And then, I kind of show up. But
Yeah.
additionally, my uncle Terry, who's actually my dad's younger brother, what was very kind of surreal and but also humbling and something I'm very proud of is that my uncle Terry was the first black city manager in the state of Texas back in
Oh
the early
wow.
70s. And what's very interesting about that, and this will kind of show the dichotomy between my dad and my uncle and me, is that my uncle is just one of those guys that is like once generational, just super dynamic. I mean, this is a guy who he was the city manager of Salina, Texas, which is now a big, booming, thriving suburb now, but 50 years ago, it was a little town in the middle of nowhere. But
Yeah.
he was the city manager there in his early 20s, like 22 years old.
Oh wow.
And he was an assistant city manager in Austin in his late 20s. And he was the city manager of Oklahoma City. And he retired before he was 40 and went into business for himself and started a construction company. Now, compare that. You got my dad, who's like this guy that everybody knows and loves. And then you got my uncle, who's just like this dynamic supernova in the profession. Then I show up, it's just like, it can be intimidating. It
Yeah.
really can. It's funny. Somebody texted me this morning and just talked about that, man, that I'm doing a good job of filling big shoes. And I guess it's kind of a cuss word. I mean, they're big ass shoes.
Yeah.
And what I just realized is that it's not my job to fill them.
Yeah.
You just have to go your own way. And I'm not my dad. I'm not my uncle. If anything, I'm probably a hybrid of the two of them. I'm not super outgoing and gregarious like my dad is, but I'm not sure as hell not as smart as my uncle and dynamic. But what I've really kind of learned to do is just I have my own path, and really what my responsibility is to just keep the children's name in a good light in this profession. And so
Yeah.
I have to put my best foot forward. I got to work hard. I got to make an impact on the profession to keep my family's legacy on board. But trust me, early on in my career, I struggled with it because
Yeah.
it's a blessing and a curse. Because I compared myself to I didn't dare compare myself to my uncle, but
Yeah.
I compared myself to my dad, where he was in certain points, and again, it's just like I just realized I'm my own person,
Mhm.
and me being me, I bring something to the table that they
Yeah.
didn't. And so you
Yeah.
just kind of learn to balance it out. But man, I am so proud to carry my family's legacy. I grew up in city halls. I grew up at conferences, ICMA, TCMA, whatever the case may be. And I was just around it. And I was just, one thing I do remember as a kid, I was just very, very proud of what my dad did.
Yeah.
And you just you're rightfully so. Your dad is like Superman, right?
Yeah.
Just like my dad's the coolest, he's the best. He does, and I had that mentality, but I also had an immense amount of pride for what my dad did, and hearing him talk about we built that over there. He had a story for every project and everything else like that, and that just resonated with me. And what I tell people all the time is that when I realized that I wasn't good enough, nor was I going to the NFL, I was like, okay, I need to figure out what I want to do. And I remember having a conversation with my dad going into my junior year of college, and I stopped playing football, and I was like, hey, Dad, I want to get into city management. And he told me everything I need to do.
Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah. Well, but I could totally see, like, it's so natural to compare yourself to them as you're entering the field and entering kind of your own career. But like, it'd be really hard to kind of let that go and like not and realize you're your own person. But that takes a lot of kind of maturity and and probably time, I'd imagine.
Time being the operable component of it, and then you just get to that place in this space. And I think for me, I think once I had the opportunity to come here at Flower Mound and lead my own organization, I felt like, okay, this is my path. It's no
Yeah.
longer worrying about what they did or didn't do. Here's my path. Here's my time to chart what I bring to the table and what I bring to the profession and to the community that I serve.
Yeah. Yeah. So I am curious, like so your dad gave you advice entering, like how to get into the field, but like, are there other things about the profession, whether in, I don't know, approaching the job and approaching kind of your first town manager role? Like, are there other kind of tips and tricks that you learned from your dad and uncle as you've gone on through your
Well,
career?
the interesting thing about it is that my dad was very hands off.
Mm.
Um, and that's because he knows me. I'm a figure it out by myself type guy. I certainly take advice and I appreciate mentorship, but my dad never like, hey, you need to do this. Hey, you need to do this. Hey, you need to do this. Hey, you need
Yeah.
to go here. Very early on in my career, he kind of guided me to say, hey, here's the relationships you need to build. But like during the course of my career, certainly before I made a career move, I would engage him and get his thoughts on it. But he
Hmm.
was very hands off. And I appreciate that because that's him knowing me and understanding how I operate and how I think. And he kind of let me figure it out. So it wasn't a lot of heavy involvement. And with my uncle, it was just cool to hear him tell war stories because
Yeah.
my uncle was like a supernova in the sense that he only did this for umpteen to 20 years and he was out. Then he came
Hmm.
back after he sold his business to kind of dabble in city management as a hobby, just for something to do. But I remember distinctly there was a TCMA conference in 2012 when we were in South Padre, and my dad, my uncle, and a couple other people, we went out deep sea fishing, as an excursion. And boy, he was just laying out all the war stories in Austin and Oklahoma City and all those things. And you could just tell he just loved his war stories because he was just built a little bit different. And he was
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
hard charger and he made things happen. And I'm just sitting there like, wow, wow. It's like, what can I say? I can't relate to that. But he shared a lot of war stories and perspective. But overall, my uncle ended up, he passed. And that's one thing I just really hate because in between the time where I accepted this job in October 2021, he passed a few weeks later.
Oh man.
And what I was looking forward to was my dad and my uncle coming to me being sworn in January of 22.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but I know that my uncle took an immense amount of pride in what I was doing, and I know he and my dad talked about it and everything else like that. But again, man, I wouldn't change anything. I'm proud to be a part of this legacy, and more importantly, man, I got maybe 10 to 15, closer to 15 years left in working, and in that next decade and a half, I just want to make my imprint on it, not by just what I'm doing, but more importantly, it's going to sound cheesy, but it's the part of the job that I really love is how many future city managers and leaders can I help shape and mold and make? And
Yeah.
how many people can I get to the next level? Because people did it for me
Yeah.
and I want to do it for others. So I just really I want to be that guy. And I'm a, like Harlan Jefferson is one of my mentors and somebody who used to be the town manager here in Flower Mound, a couple managers before me.
Hmm.
And I remember we were at an ICMA and we were at a North Texas event, and everybody, stand up if you were impacted by Harlan Jefferson. And
Hmm.
3/4 of the room stood up.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the legacy that I want, where I'm the old head in a room somewhere. I'm quickly getting there, man. It's crazy
Yeah,
how
yeah.
quickly I'm getting there. But I want a room full of people to say, man, James Childers made a positive impact on my career and my development as a leader and my career.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that's really, really cooler than anything else that's out there, making a positive impact on people's lives.
I love that. I love that. Well, I do want to talk about your time in Flower Mound, but maybe for our listeners who haven't been, can you give us a sense of the community and where it's at, kind of what we would find if we came and visited, and then I also want to talk about kind of your transition into the role and what that was like. But
Sure.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna brag on Flower Mound, because if we were rated the worst place in the country, probably something that get me fired. But no, U.S. News and World Report ranked us as the #3 place to live in the country and the #1
Wow.
place in the state of Texas. We're a community of about 82,000 people, so we're a town of 80-something thousand people. We're located in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We're just a few miles north of DFW Airport.
Okay. Yeah.
We're on the north shore of Lake Grapevine. And what's very unique about Flower Mound is that we are that traditional, affluent suburb community, but we have a very unique mix in our community. And one of my predecessors, Van James, said it best: Flower Mound's a little bit of country, a little bit of rock and roll. And what we mean by that is that we're 45 square miles and we're very long, like Tennessee. We're a long city moving from east to west. And on our eastern side is the traditional suburb that come to recognize in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of great parks, a lot of trees, a lot of trails, things of that nature. Very high-end homes and the like. And then in the middle third of our city is what's called the Cross Timbers Conservation Development District. It's a large area that has no sewer. So we have no sewer in the middle of our town. So it's all septic tanks. And because of that, everything's on 2-acre lots. So when you head west, you're going to hit a stretch where you see nothing but big ranches and big estates, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so there's like a rural part in the middle part of our community, and a lot of big expensive homes and things of that nature. And then when you get to our far west side, it's kind of open area. We have a couple of housing developments out there, but we have thousands of open acre space where we're about to develop. And we have one property owner that owns about 1,000 of those acres, and he's going to do a mixed use development at the intersection of Highway 377 and FM 1171 or Cross Timbers Road. And then we have a little bit of highway frontage on 35 West, and that's where we're going to put a power center out there. So it's kind of this weird mix. I have 3 cities in one. I have an established suburban community that is about to hit the redevelopment stage. I have an open rural open space, and then I have a developing space that's going to see tremendous growth. We're about a little under 83,000 right now, but when we're built out on our west side, we'll probably be closer to 120,000 residents.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of growth. So I get to do a little bit of everything here. And so It's just really, really, really unique.
Yeah, that is very unique. To have a part of town growing that quickly, and then also a very rural part of town. That's really fun.
It's fun, but it's also challenging because some people want a little bit more rock and roll than country and vice versa. So it makes it unique politically because everybody has an opinion on everything.
Well, and I'm sure longtime residents have very different perspectives on what the town they love is like.
Yes, exactly.
Depending on where you live. Yeah. Interesting. I do want to back up from before you kind of took on the role. I'm curious, when you were looking for your first manager role, or just kind of what was next in your kind of career, what were you kind of looking for, and what was it about maybe Flower Mound that attracted you to the community?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I was in Irving at the time, and I really loved Irving. I enjoyed working for the manager there, Chris Hillman. It's a cool, diverse, unique city. So I was happy. I wasn't looking actively to leave, but you naturally get that itch. And ironically, my predecessor, Jimmy Stathanos, left in I think 2020, and the job was posted, and I applied for it, but then I dropped out. And I
Mhm.
just like, Tommy just doesn't seem right. I had a daughter who was going a sophomore, going to her junior year of high school, and my wife just kind of and I just kind of thought maybe we just wait for her to graduate before I make a move. And so
Mhm.
they move forward in the process, it falls apart, and they go back out again. And then at that point, I was like, okay, God, are you trying to tell me something? So what helped is that my daughter came up to me, to my wife and I, and just said, "Hey, Dad, I don't mind if we move." And so I was like, "All right, cool." And I applied again, and I got it. And so it was
Wow.
kind of fate. But
Yeah. Yeah.
what I was looking for overall was, one is that I had a short list of cities that I was willing to go to. Flower Mound was one of them. I had a history here at the beginning of my career.
Mhm.
It very much was somewhere where my wife wanted to be, which is a very, very key component
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
a city manager, is making sure your spouse is comfortable and happy wherever you relocate. And for me, I just felt like I was in a position where I wanted to go into a situation where I felt like I had a good handle of the control, so to speak.
Mm.
Meaning, I didn't want to get anywhere because I had the utmost confidence in myself that I can run any city of any
Yeah.
size, any
Yeah.
scope, right? But at the same time, at what cost?
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, I love Kim Tolbert is awesome and she's doing a great job in Dallas. Could I be the city manager of Dallas? I absolutely could, but at what cost? Am I hanging
Yeah.
on for dear life? Am I stressed out? Am I burnt out? All these
Mhm.
different types of things. And so when I ultimately made the decision on Flower Mound, I was like, I wanted to step into a role where I could thrive in it, but be able to manage it effectively, still be able to be a good husband and a good father and all those other things that are critically important in your personal life, and be
Mhm.
able to take care of myself. And fortunate for me, I'm going on 5 years in January. I felt
Yeah.
like I made the right choice. Is that I stepped in, I'm adding value. I think I'm doing a great job in my role, but more importantly, my health's in a good space, my physical and mental health, my family situation's in a good place. So I just wanted to land somewhere where I felt like I could come in, be successful, but not compromise any of those key components of
Yeah.
family health, mental health, spiritual well-being, the whole deal. I've been able to balance it out, and I've been very fortunate over the last almost 5 years.
Yeah. Well, uh, I mean, it's you can tell now that you did it right. That it worked out that way 5 years ago. How did you maybe judge that kind of as you were thinking about the role? Like, is this something that I can that won't take all of me, that where I won't just be hanging on by my the tips of my
Well,
fingers? Like,
one of those things is just you assess the situation, and
yeah.
because I have had relationships that I built from my first tenure here in the early 2000s, I
Hmm.
was able to get a sense of the dynamics. The biggest thing for me is just the political thing. Is
Yeah.
Firemount can be crazy, but knock on wood, I've been very fortunate during my tenure here that we have a council who doesn't always agree, that can be a little extra, as all elected officials can be from time to time. I love them, but the one thing that this council has been is that they've been they're receptive to what we share as a staff and supportive of the staff, and I think that's what makes it easy.
Yeah.
I haven't had a counselor yet that is asking me, why are we paying people, why don't we cut people, anything like that. They understand the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And I think stepping in, I kind of got a sense that this council was really looking for me, and that's ironic, and that's what I tell
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
when they interview for jobs. Candidly, the interview for Flower Mound was the easiest interview I've ever had in my career.
Mm.
And it wasn't because they didn't do a good job, they didn't ask good questions, it was fit.
Yeah.
And it was a deal where you could tell very quickly that they're looking for me and I'm looking for them. And that's always a
Yeah.
good sign.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to puff up and try to, make myself bigger than life. I was my genuine self. I brought my perspectives and ideas to the table, my energy, and it was a fit. And I think that just ultimately during the interview process, I remember I went home and kind of relaxed, went up into my media room. I forgot what I was watching, or I was playing PlayStation or something. And I got a call a few hours later saying, "Hey, we want to meet with you again." And they offered me the job. And
Hmm.
that kind of gave me a sense that, okay, I didn't embellish my credentials or my background.
Yeah.
There wasn't a bunch of fighting, so it felt like a good fit. Now, if there was something different where they were kind of not settled, or it was like 3-2 vote, something like that, I'd be a little bit uneasy. But
Mhm.
I'm gonna use a term my wife uses. It just flowed, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the way the process came together, it made me feel really, really confident I could just step in this, and it can be those things that I wanted it to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's not hard from time to time. Doesn't mean I'm not frustrated from time to time. But I'm fortunate to have a good counsel. But more importantly, I'm fortunate to have amazing staff
Yeah. Yeah.
that's all pulling in the right direction. They're buying what I'm selling. They're helping me get better. I'm helping them get better. And so, man, I'm just blessed to be in this role, and I'm just thankful that because it's not always the case. Sometimes
Yeah.
managers do everything right and just get into a bad situation. I've
Hmm.
been very fortunate to work my hardest and just be in a good situation.
Yeah. 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 Well said. So once you're kind of in the role, and it's probably helpful that you had a little bit of a relationship with the organization before, as you mentioned, being an intern at the Flower Mound. But how'd you kind of get to know the organization as it was, then, and then as it's been almost 5 years, like you said, how'd you kind of like work to shape it, or work to, or to identify what you wanted to change maybe over the years?
Well, I think for me, one is that this is a shout out to my predecessor Jimmy, and
Mhm.
also Deborah Wallace, who was the interim city manager for roughly about that year and a half time frame before I got here. Nothing was broke or on fire when I got here.
Yeah.
This was not a fixer upper. This
Yeah.
wasn't something where I was stepping in to fix something that was broken or a controversial issue or anything else like that. So I truly stepped in where I didn't have to go fundamentally fix a bunch of stuff. Now, naturally, and this is going to be the same for me when I transition and my successor comes in, there's going to be things that you may identify that says, hey, we need to address this, or I don't like the way it's being handled, or I want to do it different. And that's fine.
Mhm.
But I stepped into a situation where nothing was fundamentally broken or on fire. And that helped me out tremendously. It put me in a position to be able to take a methodical approach to organizational change. And
Hmm.
what I did is that I had the proverbial, 90-day plan to come in. And really, it was just about just learning the organization. So I was just very intentional about meeting people. And I have a process where I get with every director before I show up. And this was during my transition between here and Irving, where
Yeah.
I got on a Zoom with every director, sat down and talked to them. I met them for lunch and just got to know them. I picked their brain, and I asked, just hey, give me a SWOT for your department.
Mm.
What are your strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And one thing, again, I've already used ass in here, so hopefully it's okay. But I just say, and I just ask them, what is one crazy ass idea that you have?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just if money was no object and you could do whatever, what would you do? And that's helpful for me because it, one, lets me know about the creativity of the director, kind of what are those kind of stretch goals or stretch aspirations that they have, and figure out how I can do it. And for me, once you have that information, it's your job to help them achieve those things and
Yeah.
help them get better. And so it's just really about adding value. But more importantly, for me, it was my opportunity to start setting the culture that I wanted. It's a collaborative culture. It's a culture that tries its level best to break down silos. I'm very inclusive into my leadership team.
Mm.
I have an executive team of, four other people, my two assistant town managers, our chief strategic officer, and our chief financial officer. That's kind of the executive team. We meet
Hmm.
weekly.
Hmm.
But when I have a leadership team meeting, I have 30 some odd people in there.
Yeah.
And it's not just directors, it's assistant directors, it's managers, it's management analysts, anybody who wants to see at the table to grow and
Hmm.
develop. I try to bring everybody in there because one of the things that I've learned about myself, I'm kind of smart, but I'm not all that smart. I need help, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to bring as many brains into the room to help me make sound decisions, and have conversations. And I want everybody to know the why behind what we do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's pretty open. It's kind of like this Vegas concept because I'll share frustrations that I'm having. They'll see emotion out of me. I try to
Mhm.
be authentic. And that includes me having to apologize and say, hey, I didn't handle that well. I need to grow. And
Yeah.
so I think part of that is just, I think the part of the reason we have a good culture is because everybody sees and they take their tones from you as a leader. And that's one thing that everybody needs to recognize is that once you sit in that big chair,
Yeah.
even on some level at the assistant city manager level, but definitely at the city manager level, when you're in that chair, the organization takes all their cues from you. If
Hmm.
you get worked up, they'll get worked up. If you're cool, they're cool. If you're, following and towing the line on being ethical, and empathetic in your leadership and everything else like that, they'll do the same. And
Hmm.
and once you create that culture, those that can't or won't, they'll get facilitated out of the organization. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to
Yeah. Yeah.
fire a bunch of people. Once you set a tone, people will say, this isn't for me. And that's what I've been able to do here. And so just stepping into it, I just really focused on culture and the
Hmm.
culture I wanted to set here. And over time, good folks. And what I love about it is that a lot of people retired.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I had an opportunity to bring on new blood, like John Zagurski, our new CFO. Had him for a couple of years now. Tammy Wilson was here for a very long time. I even worked with her in my first stint as a budget intern here. She worked, very hard for the town and did tremendous things for the organization. But when she retired, I bring on John, and he's like a mad scientist. And we really need him now because we have to be very creative about how we approach revenues and our budget and things of that nature. And so over time, I hope for more people retiring and going to something better and greater for themselves and bringing on new blood. And I think that's really, and hopefully you can sense it from what I'm saying, that's the
Yeah.
part of the job that I love. It's like the ultimate team dynamic, especially
Hmm.
being a former athlete.
Hmm.
I love team. I love, you know, I play tight end. I love being on the field with 10 other guys, just
Yeah. Yeah.
trying to, and this profession does that too, because you're in here with your team and you just want them to shine. You want them to be successful. You want to remove all the roadblocks for them to be successful.
Yeah.
And so that's why I just fired up every day and I come in is that, man, I'm working hard with this team to make things happen for this community.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, and so I'm curious that kind of broader leadership team, where it's those 37 folks, it's assistant directors, it's management analysts. Like, how do you kind of maintain like an environment where it's open dialogue and it's trusting when you've got folks that are of each other's supervisors, or you've got kind of different power dynamics in the room? Like, how do you kind of create an environment where folks feel comfortable kind of speaking freely and talking, like,
Well, it's not foolproof
yeah,
because
yeah,
I could tell that some of the people in there don't feel like being in there. Some of them love
yeah.
it. I mean, it's not for everybody,
Yeah.
for sure. And really is trying to create that safe space. And as I mentioned before, is that as a leader, you have to show your vulnerability.
Yeah.
And a lot of time you got to set that tone. And I'm not shy about how I developed. I'm not
Yeah.
shy about standing my stumbles and where I screwed up because as I said before, I mean, as I referenced before, just the fact of what my family is in in this profession and my desire to achieve. There
Hmm.
were some times where early in my career I overcompensated and I
Yeah.
probably did
Yeah.
too much and I share those. I'm an open book, and you know, at a certain point, you realize you run a risk of if you open up too much, people can do damage to you if they desire to do
Hmm.
so. And as a leader, you kind of got to know when you stop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's tied to a book that we read as a group by Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. And
Hmm.
in the book, she talks about that extent and there's a certain point where you got to cut it off. You can't share everything with everybody, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we really have just done things like different assignments. We do fun things. I have an app on my phone which I call the wheel of I used to call it the wheel of doom, but we decided to make it the wheel of fun. So it's a spinner that I bet, and if your name comes up, I may ask you to, I have random questions that I'm going to ask you, or you need to present at the next meeting and things of that nature. So we have a lot of fun in that space too.
Yeah.
And my personality can be entertaining from time to time. And if you get me worked up about something, I think a lot of people just get their popcorn out and just watch me go on a rant for 10
Yeah.
minutes
Yeah.
about something on the agenda or something we're dealing with. But I think it's just really about that authenticity.
Hmm.
And people can see if you're being fake, right?
Yeah.
And when the leader's being authentic, it gets people comfortable to be authentic. And it's been very, very interesting and fun to see people open up. And some are better than most, but as a leader, you just recognize that director A may relish in this, and then director B might not feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
And you just
Yeah.
got to say, that's okay. Not
Yeah.
everybody needs to be wired the same in order for the group to work. So it's interesting watching these dynamics in there, but I like it the most when I see somebody who doesn't really open up very often sharing something with the group. And it just, everybody has something great to share, and they keep me on the straight and narrow too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good perspective because yeah, by you going first, you set the tone, like you said, as a leader, and then that allows other folks to feel comfortable being authentic. But it may not be for everybody, and that's okay too, as long as they're kind of just still working in the same direction as everybody else. Um, so kind of almost 5 years in, like you said, are there other kind of things about the culture that you're still trying to shape? You mentioned like as folks leave the organization, that's an opportunity to kind of think about, culture and bringing on new talent. But like, are there other kind of areas that you still want to, pay attention to or still try and kind of turn?
I wouldn't say necessarily turn. I feel pretty good at where we're at organizationally. You can always
Mm-hmm.
get better. I think for us, it's just really what my focus is on, and is for us being more. We work very hard at getting our strategic plan together and having
Yeah.
some strategic framework in which we operate. One of the things that I want us to step our game up in is performance metrics.
Mm-hmm.
We're very much getting in a phase where we're going to have to prove it out to the public. When we have a conversation about tax rate and value of service to provide, I want to be able to look at some metrics, and we're getting there. Not as fast as I wanted to, but there's some recognition that sometimes you have to take. It takes us ever long as it takes, right? And
Yeah.
so it's just recognizing that we got to get our data sets better in some areas and get them where they are. So I think from a culture standpoint, I think we're pretty good as far as just overall buying into our values and um, understanding we're here to serve and we're here to get the job done. But now we're kind of focusing on how we can use performance metrics and tell a better story to our public and to our
Mm-hmm.
residents about the value we provide. So when we have these conversations on budget, it doesn't become to I just want my tax rate lower. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, if I could do that and provide you a high level service, I would do that, but I can't.
Yeah.
The conversation shifts, and what do you value more, your quality of life and your service levels, or you just want to pay less in taxes? There's a balance. Things cost,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And trying to get the organization in that piece of how they can tell their story better is kind of where we're at right now with performance metrics, and also just being a little bit more aggressive and creative about how we tell our story, and not just go back and forth with the people who just complain about their
Yeah.
tax bill.
Yeah.
Even though
Yeah.
you explain to them is that we're a small portion, 20% of your tax bill. In the state
Mm-hmm.
of Texas, we're a high property tax state because we don't have a state income tax, but also more importantly, running schools are very expensive. And
Yep.
and I'm on soapbox, and I'll get off of it after I finish my statement. Is that our legislators blame cities when really it's schools that are driving it. And who's responsible for the schools in the state of Texas? The state of Texas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of this weird battle that we're in right now, and just helping them say that we need to strengthen our performance metrics to tell our story better and be able to articulate the value that we provide. So that's kind of where the focus is now, but also on some level too, some succession planning.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
understanding that we're a lot of my key leadership are getting at that point in their careers where they can retire if they so choose. I'm not running anybody off, but also at the same time, I'm trying to identify those next generation of leaders,
Mm-hmm.
who those folks are going to step up, and how we're investing to them. Are we sending them to the right classes? Are we exposing them to the right things? Things of that nature. So some exciting stuff. We're just trying to figure out how we get that next generation of leaders ready too.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. No, and that was a perfect segue to kind of your strategic plan because when I was prepping for this, I was kind of scrolling through it, and I love that you guys have community engagement as kind of like a foundational goal, and then everything kind of builds from there. And it sounds like the performance measures will be part of that story and that engagement. But can you maybe how do you guys think about kind of community engagement? What's y'all's approach at the city or at the town, and like how do you think about incorporating that feedback into kind of the day-to-day work of the organization?
Well, here, one of the biggest misconceptions about local government, I would love it if our council chambers were full during our budget hearings. I would
Yeah.
absolutely love it. I would absolutely love it. I want people to know what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
I want people to be actively engaged. They just aren't, and it just sparks this interesting battle where I'm at this point. I'm resolved that we have a very silent majority who are comfortable with everything, and you have a
Hmm.
very vocal minority who aren't. That they make a lot of noise, but they don't necessarily represent everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And so for us, and going in and working with our council and developing these goals, we have that foundational goal of community engagement, and we do that. We have a very, very creative and talented communications team that has figured out very creative ways to get our messaging and education out. Um, I in communications, both internal and external. And one of
Hmm.
the things that I've set up is FLOMO is kind of the nickname for Flower Mound, and we set up this program when I got here called FLOMO Convos, where we go out to the public and we talk about the budget, we talk about the strategic plan, we talk about development, we talk about different topics and issue where we want to go out there and start engaging the public. And one of the things that we started doing here in the last year, and we're going to continue to do, especially with our budget conversation, is we're also going out and talking to service groups like your Rotary clubs, your Lions
Hmm.
clubs, things of that nature, chamber, the HOAs, anybody who will have us to talk about budgets, talk about our strategic plan, to kind of get the story out there.
Yeah.
The thing about local government, which is kind of good and bad, I guess, in a sense, is that people don't really engage their local government until they're upset about something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
Or something goes wrong.
unfortunate
Yeah.
because when they come in at this kind of negative spin, if you will.
Hmm.
I'm upset because of this development coming over here. And I'll give you an example. We had a proposed development out on our west side that just activated a bunch of people. We had council members with 200-300 people there, and we were up here till 1 in the morning dealing with stuff and everything else like that. And these people come in and they're just upset and they're just mad. They want answers, and they're like, "How can you let this happen?" And I was like, I don't make policy decisions. I don't know
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
to tell you. It's just like, and you kind of explain it to them, but once they get educated, it's that concept of turning enemies into fans. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And
Hmm.
that's the thing that I really, really, really enjoy. Now, mind you, there's just some irrational people out there that are just jerks, right? There's
Yeah. Yeah.
nothing you can do that's going to change their mind. But these people who engage because they're upset about something, but learn more and more and more, either going through our Citizens Academy or they get put on a board or commission. It's great to see those people have an understanding of what we do and the complexity of what we do. And that community engagement piece helps explain that you got to, for us in Flower Mound, we have 800 people who work extremely hard for us to get these rankings, for you to have the superior quality of life that we want for our residents.
Hmm.
And once they appreciate that, that's when I feel good that, man, these
Yeah.
people work hard. We don't always get it right. There's going to be things that fall short of what your expectations are, but man, I got a team that's working their tails off in order to make it happen. And that community engagement is a big piece of it. And as I referenced before, they're going to be critical to help tell this story. The state of Texas is in a paradigm shift in what we talk about with municipal finance, and
Hmm.
we're being forced to have to go to the voters and say, can we do this? And
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel good about our posture going into this new paradigm, to where we have a good basis and a good avenue and good conduits to be able to connect to their community. But that community engagement piece is so important. And I just want people to understand. I want them to be excited as I am
Yeah.
about the
Yeah.
community they live in, and the services we provide.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Any other kind of highlights from the plan that you want to kind of flag for listeners? We'll link to it as well in our kind of show notes, so
Yeah,
folks
I
can check
mean,
it
if
out.
you go and you take a look at it, and I'll talk about something that's very unique to Flower Mound, is that if you look at our uh, objective number 6 on our strategic plan, is protect and expand the town's tree canopy.
Yeah.
Flower Mound loves trees; it's in our logo, um, and uh, and it can be somewhat of a obtuse objective, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we can't control what happens on private property. We have some pretty, dynamic tree mitigation components in our development code, where if you're going to cut down a tree, you got to plant more trees and
Hmm.
things of that nature. That's got us to this point where we're, Tree City USA and all that other stuff. But it's unique. But what's really cool is that we've come up with some programs that I think that have helped. And I'm going to brag on a program that we set up, which is called a tree rebate program, where if residents want to plant trees on their properties, they can bring their receipts to the town, and we will reimburse them for. We will
Oh,
rebate
cool.
it to them.
Yeah.
And so we set aside about $10,000 for the pilot program. We kicked it off this spring, and I mean, we went through the $10,000 in about a couple months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that shows that residents are taking advantage of it. And again, it's just, even though that's a kind of esoteric goal of increasing the tree canopy, it's really cool that we were able to launch a program that our residents really took to and took advantage of. But also in that area too, we're taking advantage of the property we do control, and we're
Yeah.
planting a lot of trees in our parks and our open space and things of that nature. So that's something that's very unique to Flower Mound, that's there too. But the other thing I want to touch on real quick is one of our strategic objective number 8 is to recruit and retain a high quality staff. And
Yep.
one of the things that we've done is that we've created an in-house leadership development called Flomo Growth
Oh, cool.
Academy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And very proud about that, because our second cohort is going through this year. But the first cohort, I couldn't be more proud of them as a manager. They are launching initiatives within the organization, and people are kind of finding their footing in leadership. And then from there, we can start sending them the stuff outside of the organization. But pay and making sure that you're competitive in the market and is critically important. But also, people got to know that you're investing in them too. And
Yeah.
our ability to
Exactly.
launch that program is something I'm very, very proud of, and just look forward to that program growing in the future and getting more men and women in this organization involved in their leadership development.
Yeah. Awesome. That's really cool. What are some of the things, I mean, we don't have to go through every curriculum detail, but like, what are some of the things that folks that go through the program are exposed to, or they get trained on, that kind of help, them, serve the organization better?
Well, they get an opportunity to interface with leaders in the organization they may not get to interface with very often. I go
Mm-hmm.
in there and talk randomly about something, and hopefully they get something by. But more importantly, they get a chance to engage with some of our assistant town managers they normally don't get to engage with. They get to hear the stories. But it's really cool. They have a book that they go through. They get exposed to different work groups. But what I really, really love is that as a group, they have a project that they have to work on. And
Cool.
it's a cross-functional group from different areas. And to give you an example of one of the groups, is that we have a recognition program for our core values that is given out every quarter.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I wanted to do very desperately, is develop a peer-to-peer recognition program. Well, one of the groups took on a peer-to-peer program that we launched about a month and a half ago that I'm very excited about, where they created a program where we have, like, basically it's a poker chip. I don't know why it's a poker chip, but nonetheless, it has a QR code in the back. And if you see an employee doing good work, you scan that QR code, you enter what they did and how they reflected our values, you give them the chip, and then they kind of pass it on.
Oh, cool.
And that was really, really cool, because it's something that's been on my to-do list that I just haven't had time to do. And this group came together and came up with a great program. And we're doing other things for Small Business Development Hub, and court rental registration. And that's the part of it that almost, in a sense, and not to sound corny, you almost get emotional about it,
Yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
these group of people they're coming out with some awesome ideas that
Yeah.
I don't have the bandwidth to do, or the town manager's office doesn't have the bandwidth to do. And so I'm already excited, and they set a high bar for this next cohort, but I have no doubt that they're going to come up with some great programs. And really, you just want to create a culture where people don't ask permission to do something impactful or innovative
Yeah.
or efficient. You just want to empower people to be able to go do. And this is the beginning of doing that. So that's why I'm so proud of the Flomo Growth Academy.
I love that. Awesome. Well, that's very cool. All right. Well, before we kind of wrap up, what's next? What are you working on that our listeners should look out for?
Oh man, I think for us, we just have a lot of, you might say that plates or a lot of balls in the air if you're juggling, but
Plate
sometimes with
spinning.
Flower Mound, it feels like you're juggling chainsaws that are on fire while people are shooting at you while you're over a Shark Tank. Just
Yeah.
you have a lot going on. But I think for us, really our focus, as I alluded to, is that we're, because of inflation and some factors that our state legislature put into place, we're really focused on budget right now and having an overall conversation about the value of services. And that's kind of really the big initiative that we have right now. Going back to that community engagement piece, we're trying to convey to our residents the value of the services that they provide and that it comes at a cost. And ultimately, if the community and council says we're good, you can lower service levels, fine. But we want people to understand the value of the services they provide. And so we're going to be working over that. We're obviously going to adopt our next fiscal year budget in October, but we're also beginning to have the conversation of what happens in fiscal year 28. And more than likely that will move to what we call in Texas a voter approval tax rate election that gives us the ability to raise the tax rate to generate more than 3.5% more revenue than the previous year. And so a lot of our energy is going to that, and that financial discussion is starting to collide with other things that we have planned in the community. Like we've been talking about an art center. We got to be able to reconcile, do you do a project like this when we're in the financial situation that we're in?
Yeah.
And we also, there's other tangible big projects that we have to do, like we have to build a new police headquarters. And so really the focus going into next year is going to be a broader financial conversation, helping people reconcile all the things we need to get done and put them in a position, if it goes to them on a ballot, to be able to make an informed decision and also guide our council to that decision. So just trying to juggle those chainsaws, man.
Yeah. And budget and finance stuff is always the most exciting thing that residents want to be engaged on. So
no, for sure.
All right. Well, now the hardest question that I ask any guest: if you could be the GovLove DJ, what song would you pick as the exit music for this episode?
Yeah, you know what? When I read that, I was like, oh man, because I'm a hip hop guy. I just thought about, well, maybe I should look at my Spotify Wrapped, and last year would have been the Clips. This year is probably going to be J. Cole. Listen to a lot of Stevie Wonder. Radiohead. I'm kind of all over the place, but if it's one, I'm a big MF Doom fan. And so I would think, and I'm gonna do a deep cut with that. So I would say a song called Mic Line. Awesome. And it's a very obscure track. I think it's on the Monster Island Czars thing, because MF Doom was a very weird guy. He had a bunch of aliases, but I'm kind of a hip hop snob. I like underground stuff, not super commercial stuff. So I would say MF Doom Mic Line would be my exit view.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, you got to pick something from deep in the crates. So that's perfect. Yeah. Well, that ends our episode for today. James, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me. I really appreciate it.
All right, it's my pleasure, man.
And for our listeners, GovLove is brought to you by engaging local government leaders, and the best way to support GovLove is to become an ELGL member. You can reach us online at elgl.org/GovLove or at our page on LinkedIn. With that, thank you for listening. This has been GovLove, a podcast about local government.
Provider of the Middle East, trying to be the illest guy to kill meat for the love of patter of little feats. It kinda gets you right here, don't it? Mess with mine, your life will be a nightmare, won't it? Left the night at home, I hope my lady don't own it. Doggone it, ain't even got no serial number on it. For God's sake, spare the guard the heartache.